Welcome to She Loves the Grid, where we discuss all things F1, whether it's happening. And welcome to She Loves the Grid, an odd Monday recording.
But it's a good thing we didn't do it yesterday.
It is because I've seen so many of us like holy crap on a cracker, I think is what Penny says on Big Bang Theory.
I think that's
Anyway.
an understatement.
I'm Claire, and you are?
I'm Diane.
Diane, here we go. So let's just get the niceties out of the way. How has been your week? It's so nice and sunny where you are and nice and dark where I am.
I know it is nice and sunny. I don't even know what time it is here. Two something. It was good. The week was good. My mom came into town. What else? I don't know. I feel like I've been doing stuff. Went to the game 5 of the National League Championship Series for baseball. I posted a fun little video because they started doing what I refer to as the "Oh Fernando Alonso" song. So everybody, it started playing the "Oh Fernando Alonso," that one, right? And I look at my mom like, "This is a Fernando Alonso song. Why are they singing this song here?" It's just a song. And the F1 fans, say Fernando Alonso. So I was just singing my little heart out for Fernando. But that was really fun. Had some obnoxious Phillies fans behind us, but that was good. And then obviously race all weekend, right? And I think I went to the game on Saturday, so I missed kind of the last 7 laps of the sprint race, but we can talk about that. It seemed kind of boring. And then what else? Was downtown today with my mom, went for a great lunch. So yeah, crazy. What about you?
Spent work, mainly work, and then trying to get over this sore neck. So like I was telling you earlier, I went to the doctor, get a little therapy. So still just trying to recover from that. Watching my dog freak out a little bit about either a ghost or a neighbor. So,
but what's weird is it could be a ghost. So I don't know the story right now, but I want to know the story about the potential ghost. It's kind of freaking me out. But
so, we did sign a contract today to rent out our garage that we will never.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
yay.
Fun stuff. That's there.
Awesome. Good. I love that.
So let's get started. We'll just warn you up front. It's going to be a long one. There's just so much. It's a sprint weekend anyway. It was a sprint weekend, and there's just so much.
Yeah.
So much.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's start with the easy stuff. So this weekend, joining the 100 Club, 100 Grand Prix, we had Lando Norris and George Russell and actually Charles Leclerc. So Lando is the one that's blowing me away. He is only 23 years old. 23 years old. He's the same age as my daughter. And he has 100 Grand Prix in. George is 25.
It's hard to believe that Lando is at 100 to be right there with George and Charles. That just blows my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. They all came in the same time and same race. But George is a couple years older. And I think Charles might be the same as George. I don't know. But what I thought was interesting. So Lando, we'll talk about this when we get to the special lids and stuff, but he had special helmet. George and Mercedes and obviously McLaren were putting all kinds of stuff out there about the 100th race. Then Charles posts something. He's like, here's my special helmet. I forgot it was my 100th race. So this football themed helmet doesn't really make any sense. And I didn't see anything by Ferrari at all this weekend. So I kept thinking like, is it his 100th? Maybe he misspoke. Maybe no. Today, the day after he's disqualified, they're like, oh, this is kind of sad, but it was Charles' 100th race yesterday. Like, seriously? You people.
He's 26.
Okay, so 26.
He just turned 26 a couple weeks ago.
Just like last week, right?
Yeah, he turned 26 on the 16th. Yeah, just last week.
Yeah. I totally forgot about that. So, yeah, crazy. Lando with 23 and Ferrari for getting Charles' 100th Grand Prix, which seems about par for the course for them.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's kind of odd, though, with them being his seemingly favorite driver, but then they forget that about him. Like, they just can't make up their minds.
I just feel like, is it a love-hate relationship that you have with Charles? Like, he was on pole yesterday, but y'all didn't give him a great strategy. Like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like they're breaking the poor guy down. Like,
all the radio for those two. Oh my. Okay. Anyway.
Anyways, okay. So last week we talked about AlphaTauri. Andrea Stella came out and said like they already know their new identity for next year, and they're going to move closer to Red Bull. So then it came out this week that they're using the same colors, the Red Bull colors on their car. So that's going to be prominent. So I think that's kind of interesting. And it does have people guessing, like, are they going to be moving back to Toro Rosso, which is what I could not remember last week, but kind of having that sort of thing. So they are also establishing a hub in England, which I thought was interesting. So that way they're going to be linking up with Red Bull. So they're going to try to work together, I suppose, as much in the rules as they can. They do have that facility in Italy, but supposedly they're not laying anybody off. They're going to also keep that facility there, but they are establishing one in England. So they really are moving towards that sister team, that the Red Bull. They're really going to align with them as much as they possibly can. So
I wonder how that impacts their spend. Like, is that going to impact their spend at all? Having two facilities like that?
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of interesting just from a research standpoint, because I would feel like the rules would not allow for this. Is like, are you going to use Red Bull's research? Are you going to use Red Bull's research from last year? So it doesn't really matter for this year. Like, yeah. I have lots of questions about how that all works out.
Interesting.
I don't know. Yeah. So we'll see. Well, I'm sure they'll be sharing even more stuff with us. Alpine.
Yes, oh speaking of money, I sent you that was like, oh my gosh, the list of investors.
Yeah, that was crazy. So we had, who was it? Ryan Reynolds, and there was another couple of actors or something earlier this year that invested. And then it came out, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Rory McIlroy, Trent Arnold, who's a football player, soccer, Anthony Joshua, who's a boxer, and Juan Mata, who's also a soccer player, have all invested. All of them. And Rory was in Austin, and so was Anthony Joshua. He was in the Alpine garage, and he was on the radio, and he did an interview afterwards, and somebody asked him, like, did you guys all come in together? Like, did you guys kind of form a little group and decide? And he goes, no, we didn't. He's like, I didn't know who else was involved. He's like, I just was researching this kind of on my own and thought of it as an investment. So I thought so too, because Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, like, they are very close. Obviously, they play on the Kansas City Chiefs. I've got great videos. We can share those next week. If I had been more ahead, I could have shared some videos and pictures I have with Travis Kelce. But yeah, like, I thought that was super interesting. So they're becoming a star-studded team over there. Like,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
How do you do those sponsors? So how do you get those sponsors on your car?
I know. I don't know how that works. But I did decide I will buy. I mean, I like Alpine, but I'll buy a hat or a shirt. So next year, if I go to Tahoe for the golf tournament, I'll be like, Travis, with you, like, Patrick. I will. Alpine. Viva Alpine. Yeah. So, anyways, I thought that was kind of very, very interesting. When I woke up and saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, Travis Kelce's following me everywhere. Okay, so the FIA also announced this week that they are establishing a $1 million fine for drivers, and the drivers have some thoughts. So
I like Lewis's thoughts. I mean, yeah. I like his. Like, if you're going to do it, then yeah, let's just put it to charity. But like, yes. We have to pick the charity too and establish the charities up front. But yeah, I think that's smart. Instead of just like, oh, let's just do it a fine and put some money in FIA's pocket.
Yeah. Exactly. So some of the other drivers were saying, like, well, what would constitute a $1 million fine? Like, touching a rear wing of somebody who had that for $50,000. That was, I think, was it Lewis or somebody got a fine last year for that. So it's like, what would constitute $1 million fine? And then other drivers were saying, like, there's only like 3 or 4 drivers on this grid who could afford to pay that. Like, so
there's that too.
What? So So the FIA, I don't know. I mean, they just seem to be very out of touch with, in a lot of ways, it seems to me. So
Yeah, I mean, what are they going to do if you get a driver, like you said, who doesn't even make enough to afford that?
right.
Yeah, but yeah, I know people, the naysayers, oh, it discourages from doing it.
But doing
Yeah,
what?
okay,
Like,
but still,
yeah.
it happens, and then what are you supposed to do? I mean, can your team help pay for it? I'm like, what are you going to do?
And I'm sure the team would not be happy because that's got to come out of a cost cap, I'm assuming someplace.
True.
But I just think like, okay, what would constitute this? Like, what is so horrible that you would fine a driver $1 million? Like $1 million? And we all know, I think, that the FIA, their rules seem to like, apply to one situation, not to another. Like, so. I have no idea. So we'll see how that continues to play out. I don't know. The drivers were not excited. Even Max, I think, was like, what in the world are you talking about? Tons of celebrities although I don't think not as many as Miami, or at least they weren't showing as many. Adam Driver and Michael Mann, they're in the new Ferrari movie that's coming out at the end of the year, and they were in the Ferrari garage this weekend. Prince Harry was there. I don't know. There's a lot of people there. This I thought was also kind of interesting that Apple is submitting a $2 billion per year offer for the global streaming rights to Formula One. $2 billion. $2 billion. Like, holy moly. So I don't know what the process is. I don't know if they were opening it up for bids or they were just like, let's throw our hat in the ring. I don't know how that would work. I don't know how that would work with F1 TV. I mean, obviously Sky Sports has their license as well. Like, I don't know how that works, but I've got Apple, so like I feel like. But the other thing I was thinking about is, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? We talked about how like the number of mentions and different things were going down in regards to F1 as far as like social media goes. And at some point it does have to probably level out, again, like, so, I mean, are you overbidding with a $2 million or $2 billion a year thing? What if, and then you have situations like this weekend where there's so many people online saying, I'm done with the sport, the sport's crooked, blah, 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 where you continue to maybe lose viewers and fans. Like, are you over?
Yeah, but that $2 billion, you wonder how much revenue is coming in, though. You'd have to go and look. I mean, even though it's coming down in the mentions, what is the revenue that comes in from the streams from F1 TV and Sky Sports? And if they're able to take that over, would they take over both F1 TV and Sky Sports? And
true.
Could be making a lot off of that. I mean,
true. That will another one that will be like very interesting to see how that plays out. Okay, so special liveries and lids. We had 3 cars running special liveries this week, and we knew of one that was going to, and that was Red Bull. So I thought it was interesting that Haas, because last week I said, why would you have these special overalls and not have the car to go with it? Could you imagine a car? And then I wake up on Monday or Tuesday morning, and Haas is like, here you go. Here's the car that got this. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. But it's very similar. So when Red Bull did their reveal, they brought it in on a helicopter, like flew it across Austin and brought it in on a helicopter. And I was like, I think when I posted it, I really wanted to say, like, doesn't this look like the Haas car? Actually, I think the Haas car looks a little better with the stars and stripes. And then at the end of the week, Williams came out with their Stars and Stripes vehicle. Didn't even know that was happening. So we had 3 liveries with Stars and Stripes. And I think my post was, if you're not running Stars and Stripes on your livery, are you even in Austin? Because everybody had the same theme. So that was kind of funny. But there were so many cool helmets. Oh my gosh. And I think if you're on our YouTube, you can see them. So Charles on the my right, but he had a football themed helmet, which perfect for Sunday in October, like football season. Again, he forgot it was his 100th, so there you have it. That's his special helmet. Pierre, I did not know this was coming. So Pierre's helmet was a tribute to Francois Servet, who was a French driver. He drove on the same team as Sir Jackie Stewart. So if you're on our YouTube, you can see him. He was showing the helmet to Sir Jackie in Austin. Not only were they teammates, Sir Jackie and Francois, but they were really, really, really close, like very close. And Francois died at the USGP 50 years ago, I think it was. So, being French and everything else, I thought this was a really great nod to that driver. And I think it was really special for Sir Jackie to see it. And again, this came out a while ago, but if you did not watch the Jackie Stewart documentary, please go watch it. Francois is all over it. And so to get a better idea of that friendship, that relationship, oh gosh, I was like crying during that part of the documentary. But it's also why Jackie Stewart really was an advocate for, I think we talked about this at the time, but an advocate for safety in Formula One. So just a super special tribute. Joe's helmet. I absolutely love this.
So cool.
Isn't it amazing? It looks like leather. It looks like it's hand stitched. Like the whole thing was like, what? Like Joe is such a master. I love his drip. And this was just amazing. Absolutely amazing. I love it. And then Lando's helmet. I literally bought the I think it's 1.5 version of this helmet. So it's going to be tiny. But I loved what he did to celebrate his 100th Grand Prix. So each sticker is a race and each sticker has a meaning. And when I was looking at it, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, I need this. Like so many special things. If you know his little radio message from a few years ago where he's like, it's Friday, then it's Saturday, Sunday. What? So he's got for that race, there's a little calendar that says Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it's a little like, it's just so cute. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. The basketball helmet, I think, is up there on the top. That was a really great helmet that he wore one year. He's got trophies for the ones where he's been on the podium. Like, just amazing. I have always wanted to get some of these helmets because I think they're really cool. Like if Joe had one and it was a mini, I would buy it. But the 1 to 2 are usually like $250. I'm not spending that. Mine was like 49. So I'm super excited that he got second. I was hoping he was going to win because that'd be amazing. But especially since he got second, I was like, I'm so happy I did that. Absolutely love it. And then who else did we have? Oh, the Haas guys had
these were amazing. I have to admit the first with the Haas came by, I was like, is the top of that helmet dirty?
Oh, it's a Route 66. Isn't that fun though?
It is so fun, especially having lived off of Route 66, and been on it right now. It's like, that is so cool.
I love that. I think it's such a great nod to like the US, an iconic thing in the US. And then the other one is just perfect for the car, the overalls, everything, the red, white, and blue, the stars and stripes, like amazing. I love that they went all out.
I love that they're kind of coordinated, but they're so unique at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's amazing. And then Carlos had his special helmet too. So also red, white, and blue. I can't remember what it said on top. It said something. Anyways, I loved it. I love a special helmet. I love a special livery. So I love that they all brought it. Again, I think they really love Austin. They just have a great time. So they go all out, which I love. All right, let's jump into the weekend. So sprint weekend.
Oh my goodness.
And Friday, one practice. That's it. I don't have any notes from practice. I watched it, but don't have any.
It wasn't, it was just, there wasn't much, and it was really interesting. The one thing that the commentators were saying later, I think it was during the race on Sunday, it was even that, all the data came from the sprint race on Saturday, rather. 19 months, that's where their data comes from. Like, and that's, yeah.
That's kind of crazy because, the afternoon before, but after FP1 you can't touch those. Well, you can touch the cars if you want to be starting in the pit like 2 teams did, but it's your cars in park for May. You can't do anything to them. So yeah, not much happening there. But qualifying, kind of interesting. I thought for sure track limits might be an issue because it seemed like during practice there were a few areas where they were kind of going off.
There were some track limits, I think, that happened, but just didn't get
maybe not.
done. I was shocked the last one did. I was shocked. But
yeah,
should have been taken out in Q2. There should have been another one in Q2, but that one's all over the internet. That there's one in Q2 that was missed.
Oh, I don't think.
But my special person.
Well, they did supposedly after quali like kind of widen that white line. That's what I've been seeing, that they widened the white line because how people are, like they were saying Max was complaining, but a lot of drivers were going out there saying they couldn't see that line because again, sitting low, you don't always see the line, but it did get wider in that area, so that was interesting. The track evolution was crazy, like throughout the whole of qualifying, but like in Q1 it just seemed to like ramp up really quickly. I don't think anything like super major. So like out in Q1 was Sargeant, Hulkenberg, Alonso, Stroll, and Albon. And you, when Alonso went out, he was out by
0.055. Yeah, it was just like it just. I was floored. I was absolutely floored. And then, again, that's that whole thing of just why do we wait? Why do we wait?
Yeah. Was it because he waited?
I don't think he waited. It wasn't necessarily because of that, but they also just because of car. The stuff they were doing to the car and everything was not helpful. But
yeah. Now they did not have that set up right. He also, if I remember correctly, he was our only driver who had been into Q3 in every qualifying until Austin. So now there's not one driver has been in Q3 every single race weekend. That he was the last one and he dropped. In Q2 though, that's where I feel like I was really seeing Mercedes speed. Like they were definitely looking quick for sure. I was like, ooh, they did have some upgrades, and we'll talk about those in a little bit, but they did have some upgrades. And I think it was showing, but
the two that I was spazzing about everybody hanging out in the pits. That was the one.
Everybody's in the pits. Track evolution, the whole 9 yards. They all wanted to wait and be the last car across the line.
and then what happens? Then Daniel, then he gets because that's where you get that last. You do that, you get one out there or two, and then your best one gets your lap time deleted because.
Yep.
And then you've got no other chance.
Yep, exactly. And that's what happened to Daniel. His lap time was deleted. So it was him. Daniel, Bottas, Yuki was out by 0.02 of a second. Zhou and Magnussen were all out in Q2. So so there were only 5 teams in Q3. To me, it's like, okay, half the field's out and half the field's in. Like both drivers for Ferrari, Red Bull, Alpine, McLaren, and 4 teams. 2, 4, 6, 8. Who am I missing?
That's 10. Alpine, McLaren. You said Alpine again.
I said it twice. Oh. Ferrari, Red Bull, Alpine, McLaren. Mercedes.
Mercedes, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So, yeah, both drivers for those 5 teams were in the top 10. Russell had his first lap deleted for track limits. I was like, oh boy. It was one of those weekends, I feel like, for George, where he's either way on it or he's just like not having a great weekend from the get-go. And I feel like this is where it started for him on Friday.
Yeah, as soon as he's off, it's just
it's like
it's not gonna be a thing for him.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it just continued like the whole weekend. So Verstappen was in first and he actually had his lap time deleted. So it dropped him to 6th place.
And I love Carl's message for this engineer on that one. Oh my gosh, I was cracking up on that one because it's like, I forget the actual wording. It's like lap time deleted, Verstappen. And he's like, for F's sake. say the name first.
Exactly. And he's like, you gave me a heart attack. Like, while I was sitting, like, he was yelling at Javi, like, come on, Javi, like, pull it together. I would think the same thing. Like, my lap time was just deleted, but I love it. For F's sake, like, just say the name first. Later on, he said, like, he had hit the steering wheel, he hit his helmet because he thought it was him. He thought he was out. And then Javi, like, his response was like, sorry, Max Verstappen, lap time deleted.
Lap time deleted. Verstappen.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's
the longest second or two of your life.
At least it must have felt like an eternity. And then, of course, everybody was picking up on that radio message. So my mom's here and she comes out and she goes, did Leclerc have a heart attack or something during? And I said, what? And she's like, MSN says that Leclerc had a heart attack during qualifying. And I'm like, oh my God, the clickbait is ridiculous. I'm like, no, here's what happened. I tell him what happened. And he said, Javi, like, from FC, I nearly had a heart attack. Like, no, he did not have a heart attack during qualifying. Just internally, because once again, his engineer is ridiculous. So yeah, insane, absolutely insane. We did have also F1 Academy, so I don't know if we want to just scoot through all of that before we move on to Saturday.
I think a quickie. Yeah, we're only 26 minutes in. We're doing pretty good.
Okay, we're doing all right. Okay, so F1 Academy was this weekend. Oh my gosh, it was amazing to watch. I was so excited to spend Friday, Saturday, like even Sunday morning watching them practice, their qualifying, the races. Like, it was so awesome. They did also announce their 2024 schedule. And so they have 7 races across 3 continents. They're going to be in Saudi Arabia, Miami, Spain, Netherlands, Singapore, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi next year, all on the same weekend billing as F1. So we will be able to watch them moving forward. So exciting. I cannot wait. Bianca Bustamante, last week we were talking about how each of the F1 teams will get to nominate a driver, and they will run that team's livery and everything else next year during F1 Academy. Bianca Bustamante was the only one that was announced, and she will be driving for McLaren next year, which I love. I think she is adorable. I think she is a good driver. She was on the podium a lot this year with F1 Academy. So I think that's going to be really fun. For Quali 1, that was only 15 minutes. And Marta Garcia, she got pole. And then for race 2 was Hamda. So they reversed those. And then for Quali 2, Jess Edgar got pole, like at the very last second by a 10th of a second. So it was crazy, like absolutely insane. But that kind of excitement, I think, is cool. That's what, F1 Academy is going to bring. It's not one, person that's always winning. I thought it was great. The drivers were out there quite a bit. So on Saturday, Esteban was one that gave the tires. You know how they do that after the F1 races. If you win quali, he was there and giving them the tires. So I absolutely loved that. Race 1 was Marta Garcia. She won it. She was followed by Abby Pulling and then Lena Bueller. And that gave her enough points. She is the very first F1 Academy driver champion. And actually, the team that she is on, Prema, it won the constructor. So that happened on Sunday. That took a little bit longer, but so they had the championship. I mean, it's like Red Bull. They had the championship driver, and they won the constructor. So George was there. He was handing out the trophies. Lewis was there. He's watching on the pit wall and congratulating everybody. I think it's really cool that Mercedes was out there. Carlos was there because Marta Garcia is also Spanish. And so he was there and they took pictures, with the flag. Really awesome. Race 2 was won by Hamda and race 3 was won by Jeff Edgar. So really great weekend. I'm jealous of everybody that was there to see it, but we'll get to see him 7 times.
Now we know that when we're picking our races to go to next year, we need to pick at least one that has an F1 Academy at it.
Yes, we do. They'll be in Spain again. Just saying. That I don't know. We need to go to a couple. So we've got to get this figured out. We've got to figure out our races.
Yes, we do.
Okay,
Yes.
so back to F1. The sprint shootout on Saturday. So SQ1 hard tires, right? I'm telling you, the shootouts go so fast.
They do. You just like blink and
it was ridiculous. So Ferrari was actually looking pretty good. I loved, again, Charles and his radios. He was driving and he's like, Russell impeded him, and Charles says, penalty for Mr. Russell, thank you. Like, just very calm on the radio. And actually, Russell did get a penalty for that. He was charged with impeding, so he had a 3 grid drop for the sprint race later in the afternoon. Perez was noted for not meeting the Delta time, so he wasn't fast enough, but I never heard anything about that, so it must not have really been a thing, but I thought that was kind of interesting. But out in SQ1 was K-Mag, Yuki, Bottas, Sargent, and Hulkenberg. Daniel was literally the last car across, and he jumped to 15th. Like, shoop, like, right up there. That was pretty amazing. I had high hopes for Daniel this weekend. In SQ2, they have to run the mediums. So Max had a bit of an incident at turn 9. Incident. Again, another Charles. We should just call this episode like Charles quotes. Like Charlesisms. So he did a full, like, I think it was turn 9. He like kind of went off the track, and I think, who was it? Oscar did it either during practice or earlier. He kind of hit the dirt. He does a full 360 and ends up back on the track and just keeps going. This is Max for you. Like, he's either the luckiest person in the world, or like he is just that good that he can keep it out of a wall and turn himself around and continue on his merry way. Like, like, how does that happen? I mean, it's a full 360. There he goes.
Maybe that's what screwed up his brakes that he complained about all the entire next day.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know if you should be slamming on. I don't know if he did slam on the brakes. I don't know. I would freak out in the middle of a turn like that. I don't know what I'd be doing. He probably was, for the most part, cool as a cucumber. Daniel, this is where I was especially thinking of you, because he had no times on the board until the very last lap.
Yep.
Very last lap.
And then, of course, Stroll had his mechanical issue. They pulled him in. They called him in, and it's like, you have to come in. And it was interesting. They were talking to him. They was like, they basically were telling him to be careful on his brakes. Don't, to be easy on him, let him cool. But he had to come in. And then the next thing he showed was, because the F1 TVs in the pits down there, look at him. They had the wheel off, the tire off, the side off. And they were just pulling everything out from inside the wheel casing itself. So it's like, there's something going on inside there.
Was that during practice, though? Because I know they called him in during practice.
That was during practice. And then they kept having problems. Oh, that's right. And then he had problems in quality, too. I'm getting the two mixed up. I get for being sick over the weekend. My brain is still mush.
No, but it's so hard to, because I kind of had forgotten about that. But then, then during SQ2,
right. So then he still had problems with it. Oh, I forgot about that.
Oh, it seemed weird. Like, all of a sudden, so I've heard different things where, like, it could have been a brake-by-wire issue, and then his front brakes locked up, but then I heard, like, no, one of the tires locked up, and then it just kind of locked up everything, but it messed up his lap, like, whatever it was.
Makes you wonder, especially if it's that front, because that's what they were working on. They were working on the front left. They were working on the front left is where they were inside of. So you just wonder, could they not get it right?
Yeah, no, that could very well be it. I mean, they had some issues. So, but Ricardo was out, so not great waiting until that last lap to try to get your lap time.
And not a good way to show in your first race back. He's come in, he's like, does a race, breaks his hand, and then he's out, and he comes back, and
he said he was struggling. What did he say? I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was kind of struggling with trying to feel comfortable in the car, because it's been a minute. He wasn't even, he was on simulators, I think, the last few weeks testing to see if his hand could handle it. But I was like, how does How did this work out? But yeah, so Stroll, Alonso was out again, Ocon, Ricardo, and Zhou. And then SQ3, again, these are much shorter session times with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. Nobody had a time on the board. I remember that, right? And I texted you and I was like, is it just me or is nobody has a time? And you're like, let me check.
I would have, this is one of those things I was like, I was hoping for someone to wreck out. So it just had to end the way it ended. Because then what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Right.
A red flag, it's over. It is over. I mean, it's just.
It was crazy. It was really crazy. They have to use the softs in that sprint qualifying, but a tenth of a second. It separated either the top 3 or the top 4, but there were 4 different teams, right? I mean, a tenth of a second, that's pretty awesome. Like, I'll take it. that is close enough, but Max was on pole for that. And then for the sprint, like, I don't know, I was getting ready to go to a baseball game. I was watching, but it was kind of boring. I'm not going to lie. I thought the sprint was just kind of, bleh, all right. And I left with 5 laps left and Max won. And I was like, that figures. That figures. All righty. I think the most exciting thing I saw after the fact was Sha'Carri Richardson handed out the medals for the sprint top 3. And I love her. She's one of my favorite sprint runners for United States. I think she's amazing. She's got an amazing story. So, yeah, that was what I found was the most exciting thing about the sprint. I don't know about you. That's my overall feeling on that.
Yeah.
All right. Race time. Okay. I don't even know where to begin with the race.
Oh, my gosh.
Let's just talk about the aftermath of everything.
Yeah. So again, we're recording on Monday, which is not what we normally do. We normally record within an hour or 2 of the race. And because I wasn't feeling well and it was so late here in Berlin, we delayed until Monday. And thank goodness, because the whole race changed.
Yeah.
2 DQs, 2 disqualifies. Like,
which I've never ever seen that happen. I mean, I think it happened in the maybe 2005 or the night, I don't know, but it got overturned. They appealed it and it got overturned. Michael Schumacher had also had that happen back in the day, but for all of us that are, within the last few years new to F1, never even knew this was a thing because I don't read the F1 or FIA rules because they change a lot. And also I have other things to read that aren't that boring, but it was like, what? Oh my goodness. Absolutely. And you were asleep by that point. So as stuff starts coming out, I'm like, what has happened? I felt like I was on my phone all day, all night last night. Like, just crazy.
That's crazy.
It was crazy. So after the podium ceremony, I don't even know how long after, an announcement came out that both Lewis and Charles' cars had a technical infringement showing excessive wear on the plank. And so what the steward or whoever looks at that said, we're going to forward that on. We're going to pass this on. Supposedly they looked at 4 cars. And this apparently, I've heard different things. I've heard they looked at 4 cars, then somebody else was like, they looked at 10. But I think the one source that said 4 to me is a little bit more credible. So they did pull the top 3. So Max, Lando, and Lewis. And then Charles was the 4th car to get picked. So of those 4, 50% of them failed. Both Charles and Lewis had shown a lot of wear. And apparently in Charles' case, it was like millimeters. It was off by millimeters. But there's both a safety and a performance issue with this. So, safety is always number one. But performance-wise, the lower you are to the ground, the faster you can be. So it's not really fair to have that, to be that low. I think that I guess it was like 3 hours after the race is when they finally made the announcement that yes, Charles and Lewis were both disqualified. So that moved Lando up to P2. Carlos came to P3. This is actually Carlos's third time he's been on the podium. Because and it was announced like after the race, like hours after the race. So his very first podium was like that. It happened again a few years ago, and it happened again today or yesterday. Logan, so getting rid of those two out of the top 10, Logan actually moved into the points. So he actually got his points, and we'll talk about that in a second. What I thought was really interesting is late last night, it was kind of later my time, but the sporting director for Ferrari came out and did a video. And I really appreciated that they did that. And he was talking about, yes, these are the rules and we have to abide by the rules. So they weren't really making excuses, but he's, kind of gave some ideas like how this would happen, why it would happen. So first he mentioned it's sprint weekend. We only have FP1 to, get data, to look at the car, make sure everything's okay. Then it's in parc fermé, and you really should not be touching that car, especially with Charles on pole. Carlos, I think, was starting in 4th or 5th. You don't want your drivers that are at the front to start from the pits or the back. Like, no, you're not going to do that. So you're not touching your car. So that was one thing. There's one session. He said during that session, they did raise the car a little bit because if I was telling my mom during practice and even during qualifying, watch their heads. It looked like last year. There was so much porpoising, and Charles and Carlos and Lewis and, some of the other drivers were really bouncing.
They commented during practice that it was bouncing a lot.
Yes, exactly. And so we were talking about that. I said, I know this is a bumpy track, but oh my goodness, this looks like the beginning of last year, like where every car was just porpoising nonstop. That is another issue with this track is it is bumpy. It's very bumpy. And so if you are hitting that, it is going to start to wear away a little bit. So they had raised it. The sporting director for Ferrari said, in hindsight, should we have raised it more? Yeah, in hindsight, we probably should have. But the higher you raise it, you lose performance. So they didn't want to go too high, but they clearly didn't go probably a millimeter. They probably could have gone a millimeter higher and been okay. He also mentioned the weather. So it got very windy on Sunday, especially. And they were talking about how, I don't know about the other teams, but their forecast, they weren't really expecting that. And I think if you were watching the race, you did hear different drivers talking about losing control. They were starting to think like it's our tires, it's whatever. And in a couple of those cases, the engineer would come back and say, I think you're hitting wind. Like there's wind and it's really strong in that area. So that was another reason that it could have affected that bottom plate. So very interesting.
Here's some interesting stuff. Because you know me, I'm going to Google while we're talking.
Yes.
Other disqualifications. I'm going to find, this is a list I found on Reddit. And this is disqualifications over the last, it said 10 years, but this post was from 2 years ago. So it doesn't have the last 2 years in it. The 2019 Japanese Grand Prix, both Renault drivers were disqualified from race results for using special electronic features to change the brake balance of their cars.
Oh, yeah, that seems not good.
Now, I'm not going to talk, I'm going to skip anything that was from we're disqualified from qualifying results, just from race results. Okay.
Yeah.
So those are qualifying results. Another one, Ocon, when he was with Force India, was disqualified from race results. This was in the US GP 2018 for exceeding the allowed limit for fuel flow in the 100 kilogram per hour. Mm-hmm. And Magnussen with Haas disqualified from race results for exceeding the allowed total fuel in 105 kilograms. So that
happened to Seb. That was actually one of Carlos's podiums that he got after the fact, because Seb in the I don't think it was last year, it might have been the year before that, because he did not have enough fuel in the car. Gone through the whole race, got a podium, and then they pull, and he did not have enough fuel in the car, and he was disqualified. That was another one of Carlos's podiums. So yeah, you do have these things because you can't check these things until after a race is over, and then they pull a certain number of cars and they test. Like
there's a floor. Here's the illegal floor was Romain Grosjean with Haas was disqualified with race results for using an illegal floor.
Yeah.
That was
I mean,
2018.
it
There's
definitely
several.
happens. Yeah. I mean, it happens. And I think both Mercedes, I'm sure Lewis and Charles are just like WTF. But the teams, I think both teams said they weren't going to appeal it. It is what it is. Like, it happened. It wasn't intentional. I don't think in either one of them. It sucks, especially for Lewis, because he had such a great drive. But you have to play by the rules. Like, if it was a Red Bull, if it was even, McLaren, like, and we found out, like, you have to. It sucked. Like, I do remember when Seb got his disqualification because not enough fuel. There wasn't enough in there to test it. And it's just like, it does stink, but
it's comforting though that they pulled the top 3. And so we know that the other 2 that were on podium were good, right?
Yeah.
So that's at least comforting. And it's just not, because then you get all these conspiracy theories out. They pulled Lewis, but they didn't pull Max, and they didn't pull Norris. So we don't know. So at least we know theirs were good, you know.
Yes. And I think that there's already a lot of that out there. There's a whole lot of that. And those Max and Lewis fans, like, they're terrible. But, it's already like, well, all you Lewis fans, he's a cheater now too. And it's like, no. Lewis is not a cheater. The teams are also, I'm sure, gutted. Like, they don't have the time. I don't know what it is. Like, even if you knew, like, would you take the chance of pulling Charles off a pole to change something in the car, like, to change it? I don't know. I don't know if you would or wouldn't, but I do like that they at least, I wonder if they always check the top 3. Because in football, they will drug test people. Like, the winning team, somebody has an amazing game, guess what? You could probably count on being pulled for a drug test on Monday or Tuesday. Like, just be prepared for it. A lot of players have said that.
But another thing to check with all the rules things, we're gonna check on one of our off-season episodes or in between episodes. Because if we decide to do some stuff over the holidays when there's nothing going on, that'd be some good rules thing to check into.
Yeah.
All right.
It could be. All right, let's talk about some of the teams, some very cool stuff. So for Williams, or Alex.
Well, Williams, I mean, first Sargeant, he got points, so that was awesome.
It is. He's the first American point scorer since 1993. Like, good for him. Like, he actually did a good job. I will say he was keeping pace with Alex. He was usually like, there was like Alex, then somebody else, then Logan. And I mean, he did good to get himself up into 12th. Now, yes, there were some people that retired from the race, but still, like, he got himself up into 12th, and
12, which is really good considering how low he's been. So that's awesome. And that puts Williams at 26 points, so 10 points above Alfa Romeo.
Yeah.
Because Alfa Romeo is at 16, Haas is at 12, and AlphaTauri at 10. So 26 points. But there's no way they're going to catch Alpine because they're at 100. But
yeah,
26 points. That's good.
That's great. And I think, I know with the 4 that started, so what did he started 16th or 17th or something? He still made up places, and he was having a good drive. And Williams got double points, which they need all of those points because that is millions of dollars at the end of the season. So I was super, super happy with him. I cannot believe it. Alex,
0-point driver, because it just leaves Nick and Dan. Well, no, Nick won't get a point, and then you have Danny. Danny's at 0. So now
he may
Logan has a point.
Yay, he's on the board. Yay. I love that. So AlphaTauri, that was kind of one of my things. So before we talk about Daniel here a little bit, so Yuki finished in the points. He finished initially 10th, then he got bumped up to 8th after everything. And on the last lap, he got the fastest lap.
I love that he went in the pit and got soft just so we could go out there and just hit it.
And
Max didn't.
I don't think Max had it. I think Daniel had it before Yuki did. Oh, Max had it?
No.
Oh,
no, Max
okay. Yeah, no, I thought Daniel had it. So Yuki took it away. But what I thought was interesting is Yuki said after the race, he didn't know why they were telling him to come into the pits. he did it. I'm sure he was asking, like Yuki does on the radio, asking, air quotes, why. And then when he got into the pits, they finally told him, he was like, oh, okay. And he went for it. So yay, Yuki. He thought he had 2 points. He had more than that once he got bumped up. But thoughts on Daniel this weekend. So he did say after the race that he had some damage to his car. So not really the best representation. But what are your thoughts of his first weekend back in Austin on the track, I would say?
I don't know. I mean, he could say that he had damage to his car, what, the whole weekend or the race? Because he didn't do that well in the sprint either, I mean,
I was trying to think because I think he finished ahead of Yuki on Saturday in both things, but he was behind Yuki in qualifying Friday, and then obviously finished behind Yuki yesterday.
I mean, he did get ahead of him. True, he's 12th and Yuki was 14th, but I don't know. He just not as good as I would expect him to. I guess is what I'm getting at. Like he just, and again, he's like I've got to go back. Like I didn't realize that he didn't get as much time, and it makes sense. He was only doing simulators, so
yeah,
we'll have to give him some.
I know.
I think part of it is the hype. There's just so much hype, and especially when you see all these things about Danny being placed so close to Max, and people speculating that Danny's going to take Checo's chair and all of that. So it's that kind of it's that kind of stuff that makes me just a little iffy. It's like, don't hype him so much. I mean, he's a great personality. He's a great guy and all that.
Yeah.
But like when we start losing the humbleness is when it starts eating at me just a little bit,
I think that's I don't think losing the humbleness is coming from Daniel, because I think he plays it down. But Red Bull and everybody else, and maybe not even so much Red Bull, but everybody else putting him in Checo's seat is like, yeah. And I just feel like for Daniel, like he sat out most of the year, then he was in, like you said, then he was out, and now he's got it. So I don't think he's had a chance to really get the feel for that car and really be comfortable.
No, I think it might be a little bit easier if it could have just like, I don't know, it's I'm torn. Like as I was about to say it out, like I pulled it back. It's like part of me is like, oh, if he could come out even and say, hey guys, I don't expect a lot. Like just be that like outwardly like over humble, if that's even a thing. It's like, don't expect a lot. I am one, rusty, and two, but then people are like, oh, you're making excuses. There's like the whole, then why are they picking you? Why they kick out Nick? And all this back and forth. So I don't know. I think it's one of those that I don't think this is one going to get us on the bad word filters. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't, kind of thing. So it's a catch-22 for him. So I don't think it was awful. To me, he's such a talented driver. I just almost expected more.
I get it. I don't know what I was expecting from him, honestly, this weekend. Because
I was disappointed to see him as low as he was. Let's put it this way. I was like, there was a level of disappointment because I was expecting more.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's back out. So let's just see how he finishes out the year, because there's not much left to kind of show what he can do.
Yep. It's gonna come up quick, and we'll see what happens. Maybe Mexico. Who knows?
I adore him. I absolutely adore him.
I love him too. He's so much fun, and I think he had a great time in Austin. And he was. He will get there. That's the thing, is he will get there. He's had such a weird season. It's just so.
And you're right. Danny was the fastest before Yuki, but you want to talk about Yuki blowing him away? Danny got the fastest lap with prior to him with a 1:39.366 at 199.73 average speed. Yuki got a 1:38.139, 1.2 seconds faster.
Yeah.
With an average 2:02.
Yeah, but tires. So was Daniel on a medium?
Totally tires. Yeah. But it's just talking about going out there and pushing it hard and blowing it away. He blew it away.
I love it. Go take that point. Again, every point counts, because that is millions of dollars. Like,
And Danny had that at lap 49, so he held it until the last lap.
Yeah, it was. I kept watching and I kept thinking, like, that's so interesting. That I mean, obviously Max with his brake issues, and at the front, you don't want to take that chance, but
yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
But
I love it. I love it. I love AlphaTauri. Go get your points. Go get the money. I would love to see these teams at the bottom doing that every race. Like throw on a pair of soft boots and get out there and go for that fastest lap, because that point is moolah. I love it. Awesome. Well, another kind of disappointing race for Ocon. Seriously.
I can't. All in the news is like, oh, this is his sixth, did not finish. But according to all the stats, this is his seventh did not finish. So it's not been good for him. And then he ended up taking out Oscar. No, yeah. Oscar, yeah, he ended up taking out.
I think so. When I first saw it, I tried to watch the onboards, like. They had Ocon's on board and then Oscar's, and I kept going back and I just kept watching it. I initially thought it was Oscar that went into Ocon. Everybody online seems to think that Ocon, Oscar was on the driving line and Ocon went into him. But I think that if you look at the steering wheel, it looks like Ocon was trying to go this way. So I don't know who hit who. But for Ocon, he had a nice gash in his side pod. And then for Oscar, there was a leak, I think a water leak or something, that he ended up having to retire his car. So, yeah, I just think like Ocon, even if it was his fault, like, geez Louise, that guy has had a season and a half. Ferrari, though, was stressing me out because on that first lap, like, first of all, love Carlos jumping up into like third or fourth or wherever he ended up. I was like, this is amazing. Good job. He really went for it up there, but they started fighting each other on the first lap. And I was like, I cannot handle it. I can't handle it at all. Like, not at all. But then they got picked off by Mercedes, by Red Bull. Like, neither one of them could like defend those cars. It was just like, okay.
No, and then the infighting between the two of them, especially when Carlos went by, or I think they told Charles to let Carlos go by. And
towards the end, yes.
Why? Like,
yeah. Well, he did it, and you never know like how quickly the radios, like, do we hear them? So yeah, it was lap 51, I think, and so. But Carlos there was some space between him and Charles, because I said to my mom, because she's like, why are they telling Charles to move over? And I said, well, Carlos must be faster. And we looked at the screen and Carlos was ahead. And I said, do you see the difference? Like, he just went past. And so Carlos is definitely the faster car. Then, like you said, Charles did come on and was like, but why did I have to do that? And he's like, we'll have to discuss that after the race. Like, that's
it's like after the race, I'm like, oh my.
I think Charles, but they had him on a one-stop strategy at that point, and that wasn't great at all. Like, I don't know what happened with Charles' strategy. I really don't.
Every team that said they were going to do or looked like they were doing one stop, and then they all abandoned that. We'll get to that when we get to McLaren.
Well, Max even said in the cool down room, because somebody asked him and he said, oh, I knew with Lando. He was watching what was happening with Lando. And he said, I knew the one stop was not going to work. He's like, I knew it wasn't going to work. I knew that early on. So like the drivers, they knew. The other thing I thought was funny, another Javi and Charles radio message was, I think around like lap 45, Javi comes on and he's like, so do you want to try plan C or stay with plan D? And Charles was not happy. He basically was like, it's too late. Why are you asking me this? Like, it's too late. I don't know if plan C was like, do a 2-stop. It's too late to do a 2-stop. You stop now with what, five laps or whatever, or 10 laps left. You're not getting back to the point. You're just not. So, I mean, again, Ferrari and the strategy. Ferrari messing up Charles' race. Like, come on. That was insane. And
Yeah, and then when Carlos did go by and his radio, they're like, telling him he should like go for it. He's like, "You think?" It was almost like, "Duh, little
yeah,
push, okay." Like,
yeah. Even Carlos, he was the one who said, "It looks like Lando's slow, no?" And the guy, and his engineer like, "Yeah, he's much, we're X whatever faster than he is," and he's like, "Well, let's go," and his let's go,
and then
and
finally
then
it's like, "Oh yeah, push." I'm like, could you be a little more motivated about that and excited instead of
right,
him asking, "Why aren't you going?" Oh, the pace. You need to push, push, push. Like,
yeah. I
you
mean,
lost
again,
3 seconds with just that conversation.
yes, exactly. And like you just said, why does Carlos have to be his own strategist again? Why are you not saying we are X faster than Lando right now? If you push, now Lando ended up speeding up and Carlos couldn't catch him anyways. But like, why does he have to say, is Lando slow? Lando looks slow to me. No, am I right? Like no, you should be telling him. Oh my God, be proactive, Ferrari. Um, I do think that Charles was pretty calm. Maybe he's just used to it, but the guy went from pole to P6 and then he was disqualified. Like, could you imagine? Like, just when you think like Charles has no hope, he sinks further. Like, I don't know how the dude does it. And I hope he has a mental health coach or somebody on his staff because holy cow, ridiculous. This has been so hard for him. Like, again, does somebody on the team secretly hate him and they just tell him he's the number one driver and then they do everything they can to like gaslight him? Like, for real. No, you're number one. Okay, mess with his strategy because we're not gonna let him we're just gonna make him think that he's not. We're just gonna make it think that he's not. So happy for Carlos, ended up on the podium. Good job, Carlos, for getting up into fourth. Gutted for Charles. Starting on pole and you finish sixth and then you're disqualified. Like, just awful. So sad. Let's talk about your team. Aston Martin.
Well, I mean, Stroll is just Stroll. But Fernando, I don't know. Yeah, I know, but it's just, I don't know. I'm not excited by him too much. But yeah, he did all right. Yeah, he has points finally, which is nice. I mean, after the DQs helped him out there.
Yeah. He did finish ninth, so that was kind of good. And then he ended up P7.
Yeah, that's true. But Fernando, the thing with him is that, and this is what I was reading too, is that they hauled the cars out of Park Ferme so they could make wholesale changes to the setup.
Yes. So what they did, does it say, like, they kept Lance on their new setup. They took Fernando and put him back in the Qatar setup. They wanted to compare the two because they brought these floor changes and some changes to their front, and it was trash. Like we saw, Fernando's out in Q1 or Q2, whatever it was.
Yeah.
In quali, Lance is having issue after issue. So they took it out and they said,
and the analysis is that it worked because even though he started so far back, he was charging forward, doing well, and he was fighting back, very comfortable ninth, was up there, and then he sustained floor damage.
Yeah.
And that's what took him out. So that it ended all the hard work and it forced him to retire. And that's now he's only 12 points ahead of Sainz in the driver championship.
I saw that. No, he started, like you said, in the pits, and he was in P7 when he had to retire. Like, that's awesome. So their car, what I think is interesting is they were on two different setups, right? The new one and then Qatar, and they both were doing well. Again, Lance finished P9. Fernando was running P7 before he had to retire. So both setups all of a sudden were doing much better. So I know that the reason they pulled him, they wanted to just get the data. They want to see, they were using it as a testing session, and so was Haas. Haas did the same thing. They pulled their cars, put them in Parc Ferme. They wanted to mess around with it. They're like, we need to see what's happening so we move forward for 2024. We know what's going on. So And they were all starting towards the back anyway, so might as well. You're not losing all that much. But I was impressed with the Aston Martin again, starting towards the back, being up in the points. Both of them were. Like,
and he would, until I was so disappointed when I was like, oh my gosh, like
that was sad. I hated to see that. I absolutely hated to see that. But I also, so yesterday, because I always watch the pre-show, I had to laugh, and I texted Claire about this because we knew that both Aston Martins were going to start from the pit. But when they opened the pit lane and the guys, they do their practice laps, Lance took his car to the grid. And I'm sitting there like, why are the Aston Martin pit team running, like sprinting down the grid with all their stuff, the fans and that little thing that jacks up the car? Like, they're sprinting. What is going on? Then I realized that's Lance. He's supposed to be in the pits. So they had to start pulling down the car. They had to move it, and then they had to wheel it into the pits and all the way down the pit lane to their garage. What are you doing, Lance? Like, this is where I get frustrated with him, is like, it's simple. We belong in the pit.
Have focus.
And I know they were investigating him, or they said they were investigating him because he should not have been out on the grid. He should have been in the pits. No other cars were really out there. But I never heard anything. I never heard if he got a warning or whatever. But I just thought that was hysterical because I'm like, this is the stuff that, like, I don't have patience for. Is, we're starting in the pits. Why are you on the grid? Now all of our pit crew has to run out there, get your car, wheel it back, push it back into the pit lane, and then take it to the garage. Like, come on. That is rookie 101. You know that. So anyways, that was my 2 cents. Let's talk Mercedes really quick. So they also had an upgrade this week. They were hoping to see some time, which I think they for sure did, at least from Lewis, but in the race, I don't know with the floor, but they really were wanting to see the car on track so they can, like, keep planning for 2024. So that's what it was. Lewis did an awesome job. Like, he passed Carlos really easy. Carlos didn't even put up a fight early on. It was not a contest. Charles, same thing, went right past him. One thing I noticed, Lewis wore his rainbow helmet the whole weekend.
I loved it.
Love it. If you're not from America, Texas has a lot of issues. And so he wanted to show out with his rainbow helmet. Thank you, Lewis, for doing that. Appreciate it. I thought I still think they did. Their team, strategy team, I think screwed Lewis up. Like, he was in the lead, right? Because cars were coming in. They thought he had at least 5 more laps on these tires. He was struggling. Meanwhile, they're asking George, do you think you have 5 more laps? Yeah, I'm good. Like, George, okay, whatever. Lewis was struggling. And so they came on the radio and they're like, oh, Max is in our pit window now. Lewis is like, no, man. Like, I'm struggling here. So they called him into the pits too late. Didn't matter. He came out behind Max, totally messed him up. And it was a long pit stop. I think that was his longer one, where it was like 3.5 seconds or something kind of ridiculous. So Lewis had a nice little battle with Lando. Incredible wheel-to-wheel action. Absolutely loved it. Engineer was telling him, go get Max, but Lewis was like, I think it's too late. There's too much space here. You guys didn't give me what I needed to really make that happen. So he, I think, expressed his frustration that they didn't undercut Lando at the very beginning. He definitely felt like they could have won. It probably was their best chance. But honestly, with what happened after the race, like, maybe it was good he didn't win.
Yeah, that would have been really, really,
really awful.
I think really depressing to go from a win to disqualified versus
very. And I think it would probably take a win for him to pass Perez for second in the driver championship, because he's now 39 points back. He wasn't even that far back when the weekend started. So
Because Perez got points, so
because
yeah.
Perez was like fifth, or who knows where he ended up after everything happened. So yeah.
By the way, they did just because I like to Google while we go. I should have did this before we went, but they did rule on the thing with Lance.
What'd they say?
They said, I can read it all, but basically, however, having reviewed the detail and matter, although the established process was not followed, no breach of any regulation was evident. They said the scenario caused the incident, which was far from ideal, but there's no rule that was breached, so therefore nothing.
Yeah. It was definitely more of an inconvenience, I think, for Aston Martin. I just think it's like, come on, like,
yeah,
pay attention.
There's the ruling, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So for Haas, we've been talking about them bringing their upgrade to Austin, right? So what they did is they flew their cars from Qatar to a facility in Austin. So flew it directly there. They built the new version, did whatever they need to do, which I thought was kind of cool. Like they just went straight and did what they needed to do. So it is an aerodynamic upgrade. They're changing like the whole concept. It should help with the tire wear and the consistency. And like from the side pod and everything, it kind of looks like they took a little bit of Red Bull, a little bit of Aston Martin, kind of like mixed it all together. Like we just talked about, same as Aston Martin, they pulled both their cars because I don't think that they were performing exactly the way they thought they might. And so they pulled their cars out of Parc Fermé, made some changes, and then they started from the pit lane. I think Hulkenberg, I mean, he seemed like he was 11th. Okay, I was going to say
after all the moves up, so it would have been 13th, and K-Mag got 14th.
Okay, so was he last?
No, Ricardo was 15th.
Oh, that's right, Ricardo. Okay.
Ricardo was last.
Yeah, so Hulkenberg was looking really good. I thought like he definitely was. He was making moves. So maybe they're on the right track. Again, for a lot of these changes, it is going to be for next year. So we'll just see what happens over the next few races. Let's talk about McLaren. Lando on the
jump right off the start. I wasn't feeling well, but it still got a little bit of a squeal out of me. That was amazing.
And he went in on that first turn. He was like, I'm taking control right now. Like it's
so great to have, because we spent so many races where a Red Bull was the leader, or it was Max, the leader of a race. And he led so much of this race, which was so amazing.
He did. I think they let him down also, to be honest with you. I don't know why they would put him on hards and then call him in so quickly and then put him on hards again. Like
that I didn't understand. And then put him on, if you're going to call him in, then put him back up, put him on mediums. Like do something, and then why so quickly? I didn't understand. Like
I know. I felt the same way,
or just
he really, really could have been fighting Max for that. Like I just thought that was sad. Yeah, they were. I don't know if they were trying to undercut Max, but he came out. Max came out, I think, from his thing, or Lando came out. I don't remember. Anyways, Max got out in front of him, and it was like that was it.
I was watching. He was keeping at the beginning. He was keeping a good 6 to 7 seconds ahead of him, usually around 6.5 seconds. And then after the first pits, he was for a while keeping a good 4 seconds. Lando was keeping 4 seconds ahead of Max. And I really, in my heart, believe that since they brought him back in, if they put him on mediums, he would have had just enough in that McLaren to, I think, keep ahead. Because then Max overtook him, and I know, like for like, hard for hard. But if he could have been on mediums, I think he would have had a little bit of a chance to keep the speed up and stay ahead. Because Max did not pull that far ahead, and it wasn't this major overtaking. And he for a while was struggling to pull away from him. In fact,
well, he had that whole brake issue. I think he was concentrating so hard.
It was 10 seconds. 10 seconds is the gap between Max and Lando. So 10 seconds, and
What was the difference between Max and Lewis? Because Lewis was second.
2.
Yeah, so 2 seconds. That was it. And if Lando had been able to be like that could have been Lando. Like if they had just played their cards right. And I just feel like they didn't really do a great job. But Lando was still driver of the day, which I love it because whenever he finds out, he's always like, that's basically a win. So I just think that's adorable. It's his 4th podium in a row. He moved to 6th in the driver standings, so he's ahead of Charles now after the disqualification. He's ahead of Charles. And Lando did say their issue was tire deg. I don't know. Could be, but again, why'd you put him on the hards? And McLaren passed Aston Martin in the constructor standings. So that race was important. And when you think about it, with Oscar retiring in lap 10, or I don't even know when he retired, like
10.
That was one car that put you into that. So, well, at least, yeah, you had Saturday, but I don't think Oscar scored any points on Saturday either. So good job, Lando. I love it.
Yeah, and Lando is only, 12 points behind Carlos.
I know. He better get a move on because I think McLaren and Lando are going to be they're going to be hot. They're going to be hot the next few races, and to me that will be the biggest thing. And I was thinking about this like at our end of the year, after the final, to see the point difference, because remember we talked about McLaren before the summer break, McLaren after the summer break, like how many points they've scored, and it just keeps going. Like they are definitely
some fun graphics on that when we do at the end, and our visual for people to follow us on YouTube, because it'll be okay. Let's get into Red Bull, and all I've talked about is the complaints were just the way he was snapping at his engineer.
Oh. I know, but can you imagine though? Like he is going 1,000 miles. I mean, not really, but like I exaggerate. But did you see the thing that I posted?
All do, but the thing is they all are driving. They all have this to deal with. They all are running into blah blah blah. And the job of the engineer is to give them these updates and let them know if someone's approaching on them or getting near them or what the pace is. That is the job of the engineer. And if he hadn't told him and Lewis were to overtake him, he would have been doubly as ticked off. Like, it's just snap at him. I know I'm doing with the brake here. I know I'm doing with brakes. Shut up.
Don't talk during the braking. Did you see the story I posted with the Shrek? Oh my God, that's so funny. There's a meme out there. Who has the time to go do this is my question. That's what I said to my mom. Like, who is like, you know what? There's a great scene from Shrek where Donkey is like, his little nose just comes out, and the timing of the words is perfect. So Donkey's little nose comes out between what's her name? Princess something.
Fiona.
He's sitting in between Fiona and Shrek, and they're in a carriage, and his little nose just pokes out, and he goes 3.6, and then Shrek turns around, but it's Max's voice, and he's like, "Don't talk to me during the braking." Who has time to figure out that this would be funny? It's hysterical. I've saved it because I've watched it so many times and laughed so hard. Oh my gosh. You guys won't be able to see it, but go look at it. It's like F1 Troll or somebody on Instagram.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
Go watch it. It's the funniest thing you'll see all week. I will watch that over and over. I have certain videos that I watch over and over, and that's going to be one of them. 100% one of them. Kimi Räikkönen has some awesome compilations I watch those over and over because they're hysterical. Perez didn't seem to do too badly. I mean,
yeah, I'm happy. I'm so happy for him because I mean, as much as like the Red Bull's got enough points and whatnot, I'm kind of worried about him. But Perez is good.
He did all right.
Perez.
Yeah, if the rumors are true that if Lewis passed him for second, which I think that's pretty fixed now, like that's not going to happen, that he would lose his seat. I feel like, I mean, you've still got some races you got to step it up for, but I would feel a little bit of a weight taken off of my shoulders if I were Perez. So the win
is still possible. I mean, there's 4 races left.
Absolutely possible.
And the way Checo's been doing, and if Hamilton steps it up,
You never know. I mean, all it takes is one win, really, from Hamilton, and he's got a ton of points. Like, you never know.
39 points. If Hamilton were to get second, twice, that's 36. If we were to get it 3 times and Perez were not to score anything, he'd be out. So
I know. I think that's the hard part is I think Perez will score like that. Yeah. So I don't know. It's not impossible. It could happen. It could totally happen. So this win yesterday at Austin has Max at 50 Grand Prix wins. So he ties with Vettel, Prost, Schumacher, and Hamilton. Hamilton has 103, but Max is the second fastest driver to do this. So the only person who did it in fewer races was Schumacher. So I thought that was pretty cool. And on the podium, the fans were booing for Max. Booing.
Was it Max? Really? I really thought it was trophy hander as well.
That's what I was hoping it was. Because I think that was the governor, right? In the wheelchair?
Yeah, that was Abbott.
I thought so. That's what I was hoping they were booing at. I was like, but then after he didn't hand out the second one, I don't know. I'm really hoping it was for the governor and not Max. That's what I'm going with. I hope that the fans were not booing for him. But there's a lot of Checo fans, and the Checo fans are not too friendly with Max. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
It could happen. But the other thing, did you notice? I think the trophies were the same as like the Singapore ones or the Japan ones. They were the plastic that light up with the colors.
Yeah, they kind of had that kind of odd shape. Yeah.
Like, it was Austin, why would you not do something? Austin needs to come up with a cool trophy. Like, they play up everything else. Huh?
Because it's Texas.
I mean, come up with a cool, like, you play up everything. This year they gave them all custom bolo ties. And cool. Everybody had a special, like, one specific for them, which I thought was super cool. Okay, let's move on. Beyond the grid. So Netflix announced their Netflix Cup. It's the live golf tournament in Vegas, which has Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, Carlos, and Lando. They are going to be pairing up with 4 PGA golfers. So Ricky Fowler, Max Homa, Justin Thomas, and Colin Morikawa. It's in Vegas. You better bet your life that I went right away and asked for free tickets. So keeping my fingers crossed that maybe I'll get them. Because even if I can't make it to the race, like, this would be amazing. This would be amazing to go and watch. I will be there. I love Ricky Fowler. I love Colin Morikawa. Obviously, I love all the drivers. And I think that would be a really fun thing to do. So I'm super excited. It will be shown live on Netflix, which, thank God, I just reinstated my Netflix. So if I don't get the free tickets, I will still be able to watch. Okay, we're on the second of 3 back-to-back races. Mexico is this week. So the energy is ridiculous. They are always so passionate. Here's what I was telling my mom, like, because my mom lives in Mexico, but I was like, because when we were at the Diamondbacks game, there were a lot of fans and they brought their Mexico flags and everything. And so my mom was talking to the people in front of us. And I said, you know, one thing I love about the people in Mexico is they support their people. It doesn't matter if it's baseball, golf, you know, F1, beauty pageants. Like, you are from Mexico, we are going all out for you. And so that energy, especially for Checo, it's insane. Like, I absolutely love it. I love it. So the altitude is a big thing there. It's 2 kilometers above sea level, which I should have figured out for the Americans what that really is. But it makes it really tricky for the drivers and the car setup. So especially cooling the power unit and the brakes. Like, it can be, it's tiring. It's tiring. You have to have a special kind of car setup. Last year, the Red Bull setup seemed to work really well. Like, it definitely, like, it worked. It worked. So we'll see. I'm assuming this year Red Bull has it set up the way they want it to deal with that altitude. So 71 laps, 2 DRS zones, 4.304 kilometers. So just before the final corner, the cars enter what's like the baseball section of the track, which I love. So it's named Foro Sol. It's a portion of that track. is the baseball stadium. It's been converted into a complex consisting of 4 corners. And you'll know it when you see it, because I think it would be so much fun to sit there. Like, you just see grandstands, and it just looks so, I don't know. I think it's amazing. It's basically like you're entering a coliseum. So all of them come through, and it's like a giant bowl, like just fans.
Like going into the bull ring, right? Like,
Yeah, I think it's so
super loud.
cool. And it's loud. Like, it's so loud. So when they come out of that, they're like halfway through like the I think it's a Peralta corner. I don't know what it is. And they go right down to the start finish. So it should be another like really awesome race. And again, when you start factoring in some of these cars have new setups, and they have to deal with the altitude and everything, and the power unit.
And 2 kilometers would be 6,561 feet.
There you go. So yeah, it should be another exciting race. I can't wait. And my mom's, like I said, she's here, and so she's from Mexico, or she's from the US, but she lives in Mexico, and so it'll be fun to watch it. I'm so excited. All the culture that they bring too. Last year, the mariachi doing the F1 theme, amazing. Like,
really? Oh my gosh! You think they'll do that again this year?
Yes, I hope so, because people loved it. People absolutely loved it. So I hope they do. I really hope they do. It was awesome. So, yay!
Well, it's going to be an odd weekend for me then, because let's see, it's going to be a late night, and then daylight savings time ends for me this weekend.
Oh, okay.
That means we're only 8 hours apart as of the race too. So the race is at 9 p.m. for me on Sunday.
Good. Okay. And so same, because it's noon for me, and I think that's what it was for Austin. So yay. That's amazing. I can't wait. All right. Well, Mexico this week, and we'll be back at it next Sunday.
Thanks for coming along for such a ride, but it was a fun one. It's a crazy week, crazy weekend. See you guys next week.
Bye.
And a review. To stay up to date with She Loves the Grid and get all the behind the scenes content, you can follow us on Instagram at She Loves the Grid, and on Facebook at facebook.com/She Loves the Grid. Thank you for joining us for the ride this week.